Good afternoon, it's September 5th, 2018. We are now starting our town board meeting at, few minutes late at 2:06. So if we could, rise for the pledge, please? Please? Bob?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jim, shall I turn it over to you?
Sure. As we try to do every meeting, we invite somebody from our faith community to come forward and lead us in invocation. And today, not his first appearance, but we're very pleased to have with us the Pastor David Cook from the Calvary Baptist Church, and our neighbor right over on the other side in Riverside. So, thank you, Pastor.
Let's pray. Lord, we come before you this afternoon. We just thank you so much for this assembly, this gathering where your business is done, Lord, where there is town business to be dealt with and decided on. And I thank you for the opportunity for others to come and share their thoughts and their views on all the things that need to happen. Lord, I just pray that you would grant wisdom, that you would grant a spirit of civility, that there would be brotherly love, that this would be a time of sharing ideas and making decisions, but a time of also sharing brotherhood together in our community. Lord, I just pray that you would be here, that you would be present, that you would fill us, Lord, and that you would, again, draw us together. I just pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. You have no approval for the minutes. Diane, do you wanna?
Sure, I'll go into,
Correspondence?
under correspondence, Mastropola sent a letter, suggesting, changes to the fee structure for chapter 255, that's our special events section of the town code. There were 3 letters requesting that the town board vote that Calverton Aviation and Technology is not qualified and eligible to purchase 1,640 acres of EPCAL land. United Terminal sent a letter in response to comments received from the public hearing of June 19th. James Farley sent a letter in response to public hearing of August 21st to consider amendments to chapter 217. Under reports, the building department submitted their August monthly report for $51,507. Town clerk, August monthly report, $11,678.55.
Busy girl.
And that's it.
All right. We have 3 public hearings today, but before we start our public hearings, just a couple announcements. Arts in the Parks, Reflections, returns, is it next Saturday? I just wanted to check on the date on that. Yep, next Saturday, September 15th, we're in September already. At Grangeville Park, this is a walkable, interactive experience for visitors to the park with a daytime art show and a nighttime light show illuminating the art displays, and that begins at 7 p.m. If any of you haven't had a chance to check it out, they had it, at the last Alive on 25, and it was very impressive, so I hope you'll be able to make it down for that. There'll be another one in October also. The town is also seeking applicants for the IDA. Candidates should be a resident of Riverhead who hope to improve the community through volunteering their time and energy. Interested applicants should submit cover letters, resumes, and an application by next Friday, the 14th, to the town clerk's office, and applications are available on the website under the Personnel Department. There will also be a blood drive on Tuesday, September 18th at the Riverhead Fire Department on Roanoke Avenue. Walk-ins are welcome, but if you would like to schedule an appointment, you can call Lauren at 631-369-9136. That's 369-9136. All donors will be entered into a raffle for a gift certificate for the Suffolk Theater of Riverhead. So that's a nice way to celebrate your blood donation. The Reeves Park community will hold its annual 9/11 Memorial Service on Tuesday at 6 p.m. It will take place at the 9/11 Memorial on the corner of Park Road and Sound Avenue. The Greater Jamesport Civic Association and the East End Emerald Society will hold their 9/11 ceremony on Saturday, September 15th at 12 noon. The event will take place on the grounds of the George Young Community Center. I would also just like to take a moment, 2 of our police officers this past weekend were involved, were injured on the job, so thank you to them for their service. They're recovering very nicely, so our thoughts go out to them. And also during the incident, there was an accident in which the canine Rocky, our canine Rocky, passed away, so we're very sorry to hear about that, and, we will, we appreciate his service and the service of our police officers, so, just keep them in your thoughts.
If I could just say one thing along that line, I don't normally, but I can tell you, when Rocky got killed in this DWI pursuit, the outcry from this community was unbelievable. Actually, it was very warming. We've had funeral parlors, both east and west, offering to do what they can to help with the cremation, to help with stones. We've had, community people, I think we have a donation from Ron Rary and Colleen O'Brien for $8,000 to help, to seed money to replace the dog. We've got other money, I think the ADA's involved with it. Denise Lucas, everyone remembers Denise Lucas from RMTAS, she reached out to me along with Lindsay Reed, they're willing to run fundraisers, whatever it takes. But the outcry, because I guess a pet, the only difference between a pet and a person is a pet's in some condition. The pet's gonna love you, and he was a real working dog, a great dog, named after, Rocky Palmer, of course, but, so I was very warmed by the outcry in this community, what they could do to help. And I think Laura is gonna set up something through legal.
We did, we
for,
set up, we put on, I think it's posted already, if anybody would like to donate, they can go to the town webpage, and there'll be instructions on there, so, it is, the outreach from the community has been tremendous, so,
It's really nice.
we set that up, so in case anybody wanted to do anything, so. So, thank you. Okay, so at this time, we will move on to our, public hearings. The first one was at 2:05, it is now, 2:13. The first one is the consideration of a local law to amend chapter 301 entitled Zoning and Land Development of the Riverhead Town Code 301, attachment 3, Commercial District Schedule of Dimensional Regulations.
Say that twice.
Bob, did you
Yeah,
wanna?
this is,
I know.
This is, just a little bit of, I think, fine tuning, getting the, attachment, 301, attachment 3 to be consistent with the code as it's, presently, stated. The text and the chart were at odds with one another. If you look at 301, 301-208, it, did not have, a mechanism for a transfer for development rights with the DC-1. There's two changes to the DC-1 chart. One being the building lot coverage footprint, and the other being floor area ratio, such that the, application of TDRs would not be applicable to that particular zoning use district. With regard to, the business center, there is a change which would, ultimately, provide that the floor area ratio would be increased to 0.30, and that is consistent with the language that's presently found in subsection F of 301-208. Similarly, with the destination retail center, it would be, if this is accepted and allowed to go through, it would be 0.30 for FAR, and that's consistent with subsection H, found at 301-208. And last but not least, as far as the proposed changes would be the business F, or the manufacturer's outlet center. Similar change, amending it from 0.6, which I failed to say before, to 0.3. This again would be reference to FAR, floor area ratio, and that would be consistent with the text that's found at subsection I of 301-208. Those are the changes.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the board? Anybody who would like to address this from the public? Come up.
Hi, good afternoon. Larry Oxman, East End Commercial Real Estate with offices at 215 Roanoke Avenue in Riverhead. I guess I was just looking at the dimensional chart and wondering why three of the districts were being cut in half. I hear what you're saying, Bob, with regard to the difference between the chart and the written language. I guess the first question is, how do you know that the chart isn't correct and the written language was never done properly. I mean, we're talking about 13 years, I guess, from, that's right, from 203 to now, I guess, whenever it was adopted. But I think this also gives me an opportunity to talk about there are only 4 districts here where TDRs are allowed, 4 business districts. And, you know, I just think it's a very important program. The way the chart read, as an example, for destination retail, you would be able to add potentially a second story if it's cut back to 30%, which is what is being proposed, then a second story would be out. So I don't know. I would ask you to please take a good look at this and come up with some good solutions, possibly adding some other districts, commercial districts where TDRs are acceptable. The whole goal was to save farmland and lessening where it can be applied. I don't think is productive. So
I think, your question to the TDR, I think it's a two-part, your statement's a two-part statement. I think we have regenerated the TDR committee, and they are reviewing all the TDRs and different areas where they could be located and placed. And then that all goes back to the comprehensive and master plan. So that's a separate issue from that, and that committee does continue to meet and will be presenting in front of the board. I forget what month, October maybe or something, but that will be a separate presentation back. This, I think, was viewed more as a Scrivener's error. When you reviewed this, Bob, and you went back and looked through the documents that were there, and the way that the code was adopted, as opposed to, and then we went back and looked at the charts, and that's how the determination was made.
As far as the text, going back and looking at the history of it, and looking at the public hearings, looking at what was called, I can never find any evidence to show that there was ever a public hearing for the text for point 6. And it was unclear how the point 6 got into the chart. But clearly the text, there was never, from what I could find, there was never any indication from the board, from the master plan update in 2003 to today, that there ever was any desire or any public hearings that went out for that textual change. So that's what I was able to find. Someone finds something differently, I'm more than willing to look at it.
very good.
I spent some time looking at this, my eyes started hurting.
Very good. Thank you. Oh, is that committee, is it open? Can people just sit in and listen?
If you, all meetings that are held, you can certainly come in and listen. It's on there should be listed on the town website when they meet, and then you can certainly come in and listen.
Very good. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to comment on this public hearing? Seeing no.
I would just like to say, I think this is detrimental to the transfer development right program also, because you have building lot coverage, which is the footprint, which is the first floor, where you're permitted to have 30% with transfer development rights, 10% as of right,
Which one are you
without
referring to?
sewer. Well, manufacturer outlet center for one, and then the other one is the destination retail center. You're allowed to have 10% without sewer, and then 30% lot coverage, which is just the first floor. And we were letting them build a second floor on that building to move the floor area ratio up to 60%, and you're keeping it the same. So what's the incentive to buy farm credits? I don't see any in this, the way it's proposed. I think it's detrimental to the TDR program. Cause you're restricting them to one floor, whereas you could put a second floor and get 60% floor area ratio, but you'd need to buy more TDRs in order to put a second floor on, and this is eliminating that altogether.
Well, I think there's a maximum height to the building.
Well,
So
it's
the
60
building,
feet, but
no, the maximum height in the feet of the building, I believe, is all at 35 or under. So the maximum height does not change. I think what you're talking about would be a change to the TDR program if you were to let them go up to a second story, and then you'd have to address that as a new addition to the TDR program to be able to buy TDRs. to go up to a second story, but right now they're limited to 35 feet.
Yeah, which,
I think also what's important to point out is this isn't a revamp of what we've been doing. This is a clarification in the housekeeping of trying to get it. It may, now, maybe this might spurn, you know, a discussion about the whole dimensional chart, and maybe changing the language and to maybe do that whole exercise, but this, I think this is just more of a housekeeping thing.
yeah, but if we were encouraging transfer of development rights, then we would've changed the building height instead of changing the floor area ratio and bringing the floor area ratio down. We would encourage them to build more with the transfer of development rights, especially along Route 58,
But
which
see-
is where most of
So
this
that may
zoning
happen.
is.
That may come up.
That would be nice to happen. I
Right.
think that what happened is, see the .6 that is changing to .3, when Bob reviewed the code, because this was inconsistent with the way the code was written. So the chart was inconsistent to the code. When Bob reviewed the code and all of the minutes and everything else, that when the code was adopted, it was at .3, not .6. So when the chart was created, we believe that the chart was not created correctly with the code. So this is a correction of that, and then what you're talking about would be a change in the TDRs.
I just think that's looking at things through a tunnel, rather than looking at the broader scope, which is we're trying to encourage people to buy farmland for preservation and allow more development to occur, rather than bringing that floor area ratio down. I think the chart is wrong. I think that the height should be changed to create a greater height, but I guess we'll be looking at this again, because this is not conducive to preservation of farmland.
Right.
And
this
I
is-
think the TDR committee feels strongly
Right.
that same way, that the TDR
code
program
has to
that we
work.
have
Right.
right now is not preserving as much farmland as we would like to preserve, and it is something that we need to look at, and it's a challenge that we face to be able to have the developers, be able to develop a piece of property, to their fullest extent that they would like, while preserving our farmland. So that is sitting with the TDR committee at this point, and do you wanna?
Yeah,
You're good.
I just wanna interject for 2 seconds, cause, I think there's been a lot of discussion. The whole concept here was to make the code consistent, because as it exists today, it's inconsistent.
Right. That's what I said.
So we're not looking to punch holes or, burst the bubble on TDR. We're just looking to make it consistent, and then if there's a desire to bump it up or do something else, let's move, forward in that direction. And I think it's important to note that, for the record, what the 0.3, what it referenced, it was followed by the words floor area ratio, not by building footprint. It was always by floor area ratio in the text. And the text, as I indicated, does not seem to have any inconsistencies, changes. It was always described and went to public hearing that way. So I think, again, just looking at it, and listen, we're going back to 2003, 2004, when this was all happening, and there was a lot of legislation coming through. The town board was very busy with all the commercial zonings that were taking place and with all the residential zonings. But this particular legislation, the TDR legislation, was always fairly consistent with the wording. Well, was not fairly, was consistent, and that said floor area ratio when it described the .3.
And just to piggyback on what you both just said, and I agree with Jim, this was really just a cleaning up and a clerical thing, but, I serve on the TDR as a liaison to the TDR committee, and there's members of the TDR committee here today. So certainly, this highlights an area that we may wanna look at, and I'm sure we'll take this back to the TDR committee and review this, as per the discussion today.
Would you like to come up and address the board?
Hi.
Speaking of which,
Hi, thank you. Rob Carpenter, Long Island Farm Bureau Administrative Director, and I also serve on the TDR committee. And I appreciate that this is basically a technicality and a housekeeping change or revamp back to the original. I would ask the town board to keep this hearing open if possible, and ask if Anne Marie or Bob or whoever can come to the TDR committee and just explain and show the necessary steps that were taken so that the TDR committee has a little bit of clarity. I've talked to a few farmers and a few members of the TDR committee who are still a little bit confused by the ratios and how this was all set up. And while you may be perfectly correct, I think a little bit of a better explanation would be very helpful to all of us to be able to understand this before we move forward. And I do agree and appreciate the town board's support for the TDR program. And hopefully out of this will come many changes that will be more beneficial to the agricultural community. So if you could leave this open for a little while until we have more of a chance to understand it better, that would be very much appreciated.
Anybody else? So I think it's just for clarification, so at this point, I'm going to close the public hearing portion, but I will leave it open for written comment until Friday, September 14th, so hopefully you can,
We will
meet
discuss
before
this
then, and then
bring
be
this
able
up
to
at our next meeting.
bring some written comment back.
Certainly, the whole town board agrees that we want to keep, the TDR program intact and progressing along nicely, so we may need to do some tweaking.
And I would like to leave it open until we actually get comments back from the Long Island Farm Bureau and from the agricultural community, instead of setting a deadline for September 14th. We
Well, that-
shouldn't be setting a deadline for the close of public comments until they can convene and they can discuss it, they can understand it, and they can report back to us. I don't see a reason to close it. We can close it at the next town board meeting, which is 2 weeks from now.
So do you wanna leave the public hearing open, or do you wanna just leave it open for written comment? I mean, I would like to close the public hearing and leave it open for written comment. We can leave it open for written comment till the 28th of September. Do you have a next meeting scheduled?
Why don't we just leave it open for further public
I think
comment?
we have a meeting coming up,
Do you know what day your meeting is?
Tuesday, I believe, in the morning.
Tuesday, the
4:00.
11th? I mean, I would just like to leave it open for written comment till to the 28th.
Okay,
We can reopen
I'm
it at
fine
that
with that.
time if necessary, but,
Okay.
okay? So we'll close the public hearing, but leave it open for written comment till September 28th. At this time, we will move on to our second public hearing. Which takes place at 2:05, it is now 2:30, which is the order calling public hearing regarding proposed extension number 91 to Riverhead Town Water District, Pulaski Street. We have, you could just introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, John Collins with H2M, Architects and Engineers, here with Tom Kruger, Assistant Superintendent of Riverhead Water District. Today before you is a resolution to extend the boundaries of the water district to service 7 properties on Pulaski Street. The 7 parcels include 4 residences, 1 commercial property already being serviced by the district, and 2 vacant lots. This was brought about by the residences who had applied for water service. They have private wells with elevated levels of chlorides and iron that exceed EPA and New York State standards. This extension would come at no cost to the district. No new facilities would be installed, and all properties that come in would be subject to key money fees.
Okay, any questions from the board?
why were these parcels never included in the water district, do you know?
I have no idea, but they're in the heart of the heart of the
I
town,
know,
and,
it's like, did they draw a line around them?
exactly, there's literally a line drawn around them, and
It's probably elective at the time.
it might have been, but it's like Pulaski Street, right across from the backside of Lowe's is where these are located,
Yeah,
and,
no,
everything around them's in the water district, and everything around them was in the original water district, so why these 7 parcels weren't, I'm not sure.
It's interesting, I'm wondering if this was prompted by, an application to the Suffolk County Department of Health Services for an upgrade in sanitary system, where they said you needed to be connected to public water, if it was available, is that?
Not to my knowledge is that, the property, they had water quality sampling, they showed us the water quality sample, and the iron was off the charts. The chlorides were off the charts, they're both using very shallow wells,
Yeah, right.
and back behind Pulaski, in between Pulaski and I believe it's Hinda or JT Boulevard. Industrial Boulevard, there is some wetlands, some low-lying, perched water, so, that could be affecting it.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? No? Anybody from the public that would like to come up and address the board on this issue? Seeing nobody, I'll close the public hearing, but leave it open for written comment until Friday, September 14th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What was that?
Nothing, I just like to talk.
Okay. At this time, I will open the public hearing that was scheduled for 2:10. It is now 2:32. It's a consideration of a proposed local law to amend chapter 289 of the Riverhead Town Code entitled Vehicles, Traffic, and Parking Regulations, Part 1, Article 2, Traffic Regulations, 289-6.1, weight limits of 5 tons, Parkway Street. Bob, did you wanna just?
This is something that came out of Traffic Safety Committee, where we had a couple of the residents that lived on, well, he doesn't sit with the Traffic Safety Committee, I do, so I thought I would weigh in on it,
Well,
but
then you go right ahead.
we did have several people that came and had requested this at the Traffic Safety Committee, so I think it'll be a good thing, and it'll limit the amount of commercial trucks that'll be heading down this road.
From the laundromat there, they go up and down.
Yeah, that's
They're
from,
different
from what's his name,
places,
right,
yeah.
from that Columbus Street thing, yeah.
Bob,
Good
do
idea.
you wanna add anything? No? Okay. If there's anybody like, from the public that would like to come up and address this issue? Seeing nobody, I will close the public hearing and leave it open for written comment until September 14th.
Thank you, Chief.
Alright, at this time we can move on to
Yeah, bring Sal up. I'm sure he's got something.
Is anybody from the public would like to comment on any resolutions before we start going through resolutions?
I feel like this is to tell the truth. Resolution 712, CEQA. This is, you're making some pretty sweeping changes in this proposed resolution. I was not aware of it when you held the public hearing, and this is the time for me to speak. Most of the changes are procedural, and that's fine. What I have a question on specifically is changing what's a type 1 or type 2 action. And I would hope that the board would really take a good look at this before you pass this resolution. The way it's being proposed, and as you know, type 1 action requires a impact statement. Impact statements are very expensive. You know, from tens of thousands of dollars to higher amounts, archaeology, traffic, environmental issues. So the way it's written, if someone has a pre-existing non-conforming business and they want to expand it by putting on a shed or anything that would be considered an expansion, they're gonna have to do a full-blown environmental impact statement.
Well, I'm gonna have Jeff Seaman come up and address that but they would not necessarily have to do it, they would just have to do the environmental assessment form first, and then the determination would be made.
All right, so, and other examples, so I'd like to hear from Jeff. Other examples would be the 50 parking spaces. Once you go to 50 parking spaces or above, again, it becomes a type 1 action. So someone that has a 48-car parking lot and adds 3 spaces, they're gonna have to do an environmental impact statement.
Well, they'd have to fill out the environmental assessment form and submit it as a long form.
Right,
That's what they would be required to do.
right. But right now, they don't even have to do that. And
Correct.
therefore, the proposal here far exceeds the state's thresholds. And I'm not quite sure why. Specifically, with parking spaces, it's 1,000 right now. And it's going to go down to 50. I believe you always have the right to ask for a type 1 action. But this, the way it's written, I'm taking it that it's mandatory. Maybe it's not, but I don't think that that's clear, so. Right.
Okay, I will ask Mrs. Seaman, if you wanna come up and just address some of these questions? And Mr. Murphy, if you wanted to comment at all? We'll just have you introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, board members. Jeff Seaman, environmental planner for the town of Riverhead.
Hi, Jeff.
For some points of clarification, New York State's secret regulations were really adopted in 1975. They have not significantly changed since 1975. There have been some minor modifications. There will be new additions and more substantive changes that will be enacted in 2019. But since 1975, not much has been done, and the town's always had the option to adopt a local law that would be more stringent than what the state code had proposed and legislated. For clarification on the type 1 action and the changes moving in that direction, when you think about it, 1,000 parking spaces might be appropriate for a regional shopping mall. They might be appropriate for a major sporting stadium. But within the town of Riverhead, 1,000 parking spaces is a pretty high threshold for anyone to meet as a type 1 action. We know that parking has been one of the stress points within the town of Riverhead. And depending upon the applications, parking has triggered additional environmental questions with regard to, say, an apartment building that would have as 33 units at a ratio of 1.5 parking spaces per unit. You're right at the 50 parking space threshold. So we did consider that. We had extensive discussions on type 1 actions with the planning board, which reviews many of these applications. And they felt that these were reasonable type 1 thresholds. Type 1s do not require an environmental impact statement be prepared. A type 1 action only requires that the full environmental assessment form, a 10-page form, be completed instead of the short form, which is a 2-page form. That provides me, as the analyst, much more information to advise different boards and to prepare a secret report. When you do a type 1 part 1 form, the 10 pages, I must complete a compatible form with respect to that, which is 13 pages. And all of that is used to reach a determination of significance, which comes toward the end of the review process. Only if a determination has been found that certain thresholds have been exceeded does an applicant have to prepare an environmental impact statement. So a type 1 does not automatically trigger a full EIS. So no money really is expended except the time and effort that is required to complete the 10-page form, which actually provides any of the agencies within the town additional information. With respect to pre-existing non-conforming uses, one of the questions that we're always faced with on a secret form is whether or not the application conforms to the comprehensive plan. So if the plan is saying that that use should no longer be there, but an expansion of that use is now part of an application, it often triggers multiple board inputs. Town board has to look at it, zoning board of appeals has to look at it, planning board looks at it, sanitary health department has to look at it, water has to look at it. So the second part of a type 1 action is that you have a coordinated review. All of the agencies involved in issuing any kind of a permit or approval are provided that information that's on the long environmental assessment form. So everyone is aware of the application simultaneously, and their input is valuable as it goes through the process. And we felt that these thresholds were appropriate because they would actually help an applicant move much faster through a review process than to picking each board looking at environmental aspects and whether or not they were compatible with another board's review. So that was the thinking behind, many of these changes.
So I have a question for you. You stated that the secra was adopted in,
I just wanna ask one, Bob, do we need to do this during discussion when we call the resolution, or we can do all this now? Okay, I just wanna just be,
Yes,
this isn't a public hearing, this is
This is
just
a
for the,
resolution.
but yeah,
This
I
is
just,
a-
it's fine, I just wanted to make sure that we're doing it in the sequence where it should be, okay,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
so, the secra was adopted in 1975. They've been working for the last couple of years to make changes to secra effective January of 2019. Are any of these proposals that have been discussed today, are they being changed and dropped down from 1,000 spaces to 50 spaces, or pre-existing non-conforming uses, requiring being a type 1? Are any of those changes being made in the secra studies over the last couple of years by the state?
Those thresholds, no. Thresholds for type 2 actions have changed. The state wants to, has adopted and will enact any solar facility placed within any land use zone for that purpose. They will bring that to a type 2 action. We have it as a type 1 action. Mandatory scoping sessions, formal scopes will be required, and voluntary EISs will no longer be accepted under secra. So their thresholds haven't changed, but be mindful that the towns of Southampton, Southold, I believe also East Hampton, have adopted some time ago their own local secra regulations. Southampton's was used as a partial model for the drafting of riverheads, because what might apply, say, in New York City or in Westchester may not fit the model for Riverhead, and we were trying to adopt a code that would fit the local needs.
And then my next question is, how does this affect EPCAL, where we did a secra analysis of the entire property and got approval from the state for a 90-day approval, and, you know, something more than, 50+ spaces would be a type 1 action, where ordinarily it would not be at the Enterprise Park at Calverton. So how does this affect the redevelopment of the EPCAL property?
According to the legislation that the state passed, it states that if the applications are substantially in conformance with the generic EIS and the finding statement that was prepared and adopted, that it fits that 90-day rule. However, if it does not meet those standards and thresholds, then EISs or additional secra reviews can be required. So it falls out of the 90-day sequence.
And then I also, as stated previously, had concerns about the language in the legislation that says that from time to time, the town can adopt critical environmental areas and designate critical environmental areas. And thank you for the information from the secra laws that say that it requires a public hearing and then adoption of a resolution. So I appreciate that information. But I'm just, I have concerns about why I feel like we are being more stringent than the state is. And I understand that you're saying that Riverhead is different than Westchester and, the upper counties of New York State. But a lot of attention has been paid to Long Island when it comes to downtowns and it comes to mixed use recommendations and zoning being changed to allow mixed use. And I'm just curious as to where our input was when the state was discussing the revamping of the secra legislation.
Well, the state circulated the proposed changes. It was available on the New York State DEC website. Comments were requested and offered. I personally didn't have any comments because I thought that the formal scoping session and formal scope was a very good change, and that the elimination of a voluntary EIS, which had normally been considered nothing more than an expanded type of environmental assessment form, but somehow had informational gaps with regard to secra, did not necessarily always go through a full secret review process that you would have for a full DEIS under the code, that they were reasonable and good changes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the type one listed by New York State is very broad and does encompass everybody. Whereas as part of it, it does allow the agency to adopt their own list of additional type one actions and may address the thresholds to make them more inclusive. So it does, you know, it doesn't, instead of the state addressing everything, it does allow you as home rule to address particular areas of concern that you would like to see reviewed or be able to have a coordinated review of within your own town and within your own town. So, you know, it does allow you that ability to do that without encompassing the whole state. So it gives the towns the ability to do that and adjust to their own environment, as Southold has done and Southampton has done quite successfully. They've had theirs in place for quite a few years now.
Right, and there are several things in here that I do agree with, and some of them you mentioned, with the solar going from type 2 to type 1. There are other things that concern me terribly with this.
I have
So,
a couple of questions. One, I'm sorry to see that we are following suit with Southampton. A man of your knowledge and expertise, certainly they should be following your copy and not the other way around. But I think when people hear type 1, they automatically think of a positive declaration, I think. And we know what a pos deck and a neg deck is. And that's certainly something, that's only after you find significance after the small one. So actually, a type 1 is just a longer, more exact form, which probably spells out the project better for you to do your review on.
That's correct, and any aspects of that 10-page form that are not applicable, there are no
Oh, I know, I had to fill one out for
unusual
moving the
geologic formations, just NA,
NA.
NA, NA. But it does provide us with the information up front.
So when somebody says, like Larry said, and I'm sure you got that, when impact you need an impact statement to accompany a type 1, that's not always the case.
That is correct. An impact statement would not accompany a type 1 action unless that impact statement was voluntary, which is being eliminated in January for everyone anyway. So it really is just to provide the boards and myself and the department and other involved agencies the information we need to really examine the application under the hard look requirements of secret, which is
So it could make it
sometimes
a quicker application, actually.
yes,
A little
and
more time to put it in, but a quicker application for review.
correct, and it's often lacking on a short form. And then, let's not forget, you have type 2 actions, which almost by de facto require no additional secret review. The type 1s that would require a coordinated review, and then everything in between, which is unlisted. And they can become difficult because they don't fall into either category easily. And by moving the thresholds down to a type 1, we know that at least we're getting a complete application as far as the secret forms are concerned, so that we can have a much more intelligent dialogue with the applicant as to where we think there may or may not be issues. Even an EIS can be streamlined to just recommending a traffic study in lieu of going through an entire impact statement review process. This does not eliminate during the secret process the ability to just ask for the additional information to determine whether or not the impacts really are that significant. And if they can prove that and move to a neg deck, the application just moves forward in its normal review process.
And it does also create the scoping process. So it can be tailored to the project itself, if you have public input during the scoping process.
Yes, and in our code, which actually now the state will use, if an EIS is required, there will be a mandatory formal scoping process, so that there is no extended back and forth, we don't like this, we're not sure, add this, take this out. No, it's all out for the public and for the applicant to provide the input, and then a final scope will be issued. Then an EIS, when it's reviewed for whether or not it's adequately addressed the issues, All of the parameters are spelled out in that scope. That's more than just an outline. It will explain what methodologies would be accepted for example, a traffic or a groundwater study, the depth of the research, the resources that would be required to justify the impact statement so that we know that it's accurate from the beginning. And that's all part of that process of scoping.
But that's already included in the state legislation effective January of 2019, the mandatory scoping, correct?
Yes,
So even if we didn't adopt this today, they would still be required to have a scoping session and know what they would be studying.
correct.
Okay.
But we were a bit ahead of the state on this one.
Well-
Just to the comment about, that we can't necessarily be compared with towns upstate, I mean, if you're looking at we live in a very delicate area, and I'm pleased that we're moving forward with this, because I think it's important that we set our own regulations and to set standards and best protect our area.
And the form-based zoning will do that, once we get to that, so, all right,
Any other questions from the board at this point? Okay.
Everything was covered, I was gonna say.
What was that?
Everything was covered, I was
Thank you,
going to say.
Jeffrey.
Thank you, James.
So I'd just like to speak on this again, about this 50-car parking. I could understand it in certain
Yeah, you
zones.
just need to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Richard Israel, Richmond Realty. I'm trying to understand the scope of this 50 spaces. I mean, we're building a 50,000 square foot medical thing, all of it after 7 years of going through a process, which was all coordinated and everything else. Because of its size, it was not required to have a draft environmental impact statement because of, I have the required parking, I have the required green space, I have the required everything that you need, I have permits from the county and everything else. The 50 spaces seems to be a very restrictive thing. If I could understand that if someone is trying to, downtown we always have the problem, we're seeing it now, that we have some projects going on, the parking doesn't exist, our parking district is not large enough, all these things that are from some past things.
And I just wanna point out, the only place that it is not an issue is in the larger box stores on 58. But if you go to any of the hamlets and our downtown area, 50 spaces are a lot of spaces to absorb into the environment of a particular building.
So why don't we say that? You talk about the historic districts, isn't that? Why don't you say that if it requires more than 50 spaces in our hamlet density areas or that really needs a better look and the like. But for the box stores, for the developments that are happening that I'm gonna say are over 3 acres, does this mean that every CRC development that's gonna start happening that is gonna require by our zoning laws to have more than 50 spots? Which if you think about it, that's only 7,500 square feet of a building, is now going to have to possibly be subject to an EIS, which again is very time and.
Well, it wouldn't be subject to an EIS, it would just have to fill out the environmental assessment form.
I understand the course, that it fills it out, but once you fill that out, it takes it subject to many things, both environmentally and politically. We have zoning laws which people buy property knowing that they supposedly can do a certain thing. Our zoning laws is what keeps our areas the way that they're supposed to be, that the agricultural district is not built within, that we have a TDR program and things like that. We have tremendous legislation within our town which restricts a person's rights on their land. This is, I think when you're going from 1,000 or again, my complex has over 350 spots by code. And it's there. They're gonna be created and the like. It just takes certain things and adds another layer. I don't wanna go into what it costs to develop a piece of property within our town and its restrictions. I'm about to give over $100,000 to your water company. I've extended the sewer district so that we can put it onto sewer at a major cost. all these things. But if I, you know, again, if a person has to, if that doctor who wants to open up his dentistry office and this and that, could possibly be subject to a real, you know, EIS form, you know, that could cost that person $50,000 to $150,000. He may be required to do a traffic study on Route 25, which would benefit the town, but again, we created that zone which allowed him to build that 7,500 square foot building. We should have considered all of our traffic and thing when we created these zones. Now you're all of a sudden getting a second bite or possibly even a third bite at the apple when a person has bought something believing he could do a certain thing. So I don't know how we've gone from 1,000 down to 50. I don't know how, you know, I understand where the board is coming from, that we have to pick, I don't even know why we have to pick a number, but if it's the concern that we have smaller lots or congested areas that we have to address the parking issues, we either have to do that within our codes to say, hey, if you're within this thing, every square foot needs X amount of parking. And if you can't do that, then you have to figure it out. You can't build a big building.
Well, that's, okay.
So, again, you're taking all zones and whatever. I mean, my project, I had to fill out a long form. It's a certain size project, things like that. There are other mandates in the law that require us to go from a short form to a long form. And there's nothing hard about filling out a long form.
Correct.
You know, we all know that. It's just a little more information, a little more detail. And by the time it goes through the 13 to 17 agencies that a real project goes through, everyone has asked all the questions on those forms. It is coordinated and everything else. You know, we're talking about something that within another 3 months will be New York State law, that it will be a long form in this and that. But I think the way the law reads, it's already deemed a type 1, which puts it on the path to possibly have a lot more scrutiny than the other way. So that's my only comment to you. I don't know where we stand on this, but.
I'm gonna ask Mr. Seaman to come up again and explain just a little bit why the secret is done. That is part of the process of building. That's why with every project it gets reviewed. And then we felt that the changes in this were unique to some of the issues that are occurring in our town. And so that it does take a little bit of a closer look at some of the projects that are coming through and some of the environmental impacts that it may have on our community as we continue to develop out further. And yes, you are right, we do have some that are already falling under a type 1, and that these issues are addressed. But there is a gap in between being a type 2 or an unlisted and a type 1 that may need to have a closer look with the longer assessment form to be filled out so that the projects can move forward quickly and the questions are answered on that form. But I'll let, why was the 50 car determination made?
So the 50 car determination was used as a metric for the type 1 because of what could potentially lead to secondary impacts from traffic generation from a development that would require upwards of 50 parking spaces, cross-access issues that are associated with adjacent property owners that the planning board has wrestled with from time to time, together with drainage and stormwater control. So again, trying to emphasize that everyone's not going to be happy with where these type 1s fit in a hamlet area, in a small downtown area of Aquabog. 50 spaces would be, a tremendous impact. Along Route 58, maybe not so much. We're just asking that these be classified in the type 1 so that everyone is captured within these zones and they're not isolated, which in itself could be challenged. Part of the secret process is my responsibility to protect each of the boards with regard to Article 78 challenges. So if you begin to cherry pick where these are going to be applied and not applied, that could probably easily be challenged. So I would like to also emphasize that if you're proposing a project and it meets all of the codes and the 50 parking spaces are basically a non-issue, and likelihood that if there are no other environmental triggers, it's just going to move to a negative declaration and be backed up with, that decision and recommendation from the planning department, the planning board, the town board, who's ever responsible for review. It's not going to trigger some other monumental, expensive study as a result of that. That's not the intention. It's not the intention to reduce the footprints of development that are proposed under our code. What it might do is, if zoning board of appeals needs to be involved in a decision that involved 50 parking spaces because now the site coverage has been exceeded, and because of that percent coverage, then the planning board has to wrestle with whether or not the engineering is going to fit from their review of the site plan application. What the coordinated review of those 50 parking spaces does, it involves all those internal reviewing boards into one collective group, which was part of the tri-board meeting that was held here several months ago, and the entire intent of that was to improve the flow of information and responsibilities prior to making a decision. So when those decisions would be made, say, oh, I have to have X number of parking spaces, it doesn't fit the code, I went back and I got a variance from ZBA, and you march into the planning board's review, and they're scratching their head trying to figure out how this is all going to work, it becomes a little bit more complicated, and that's what we've been working on for 7 or 8 months to minimize, both for the applicants and for the boards. Now, everyone is into the same review process and period at the same time.
If I could just ask you one more question. When does this take effect? When it's adopted?
Well, after it's adopted,
And then it goes to a local law through the state. But,
Yes.
what if an application is already pending, like the church in Wading River that has 25 existing spots and they wanna add another 28 spots and they wanna expand the church? Would they now be told, you have to fill out a long environmental assessment form? If an application is already in the hopper and it's already pending review, are you going to go back to those people and ask them to?
I would defer to council to answer the question as to when an enacted law becomes appropriate, or if there is a time frame involved. Typically, I look at every application that comes through for secret, whether it's a long form or short form, or an EIS, so I'll be looking at it anyway. It would just mean a difference in its classification, so.
But I'm just curious, if we have an application that's already pending and they've done a voluntary environmental impact statement, are we gonna go back to them and tell them that is no longer good and now the town is going to do an environmental impact statement? Or are we starting it with new applications that are being filed, or are we looking back? Who is this going to affect?
I would believe it would be new applications coming in after the effective date, once it's filed with the Department of State, provided they've already been subjected to an environmental review.
I would agree with that, but also it is also up to the each lead agency that is reviewing the application. They are always at the liberty to ask for additional information, whether it's through the completion, and we've done this, we've asked for a long environmental assessment form be completed instead of a short form on certain applications, simply because it's a quicker way to get the information from the applicant. Even though it's not a type 1, you can ask for a long form for an unlisted action. So many of these things are taking place through the dynamics of planning review, but I think formalizing it and making it clear for the applicants and their consultants is a lot more straightforward for everyone's benefit.
But it's also a lot more strict than the states.
And lastly, I would like to emphasize that again, the planning board Each of its members had a good deal of input in the review of these type 1 actions. We had a lot of dialogue with them, and they were very, very supportive of that, and on their behalf, I think that's important since they see these applications on a very routine basis, every month, year in and year out. I recognize the town board is very aware of certain major applications and reviews within their jurisdictional responsibilities, but the planning board wrestles with this continuously at every application stage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? All right. Anybody else like to address the board on any of the resolutions? Seeing no one, we'll move on to resolutions.
Resolution 695.
Oh, it's me.
It
Look at
is.
that.
Wait,
Authorizes attendance of assessor at seminar. So moved.
and I get to second it,
Oh
yes.
my.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 696.
Grants excavation importation permit as provided by chapter 229 to Salvatore Piratolo, 513 Conic Bay Boulevard, Aquabog. Suffolk County Tax Map number 600, section 87, block 2, lot 2. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 697.
Authorizes the Community Development Department to apply for a New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation Water Infrastructure Improvement Act grant for infrastructure improvements to the Riverhead Water District. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes, but it should be the Community Development Agency, right?
No, we went back and forth about this.
Really?
Bob, is this one's agency or department for the grant application?
The department is the division
Right.
within the town government that's preparing the grant. Then it's a question of whether that grant is going to be applicable to Community Development Agency property or Town of Riverhead property. And my understanding is this is gonna be a grant that's gonna be awarded or, issued to the Town of Riverhead. So that's why we're doing
You
it.
told me just enough not to care, okay? Okay, vote yes.
All right.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 698.
Reclassifies the titles of the head clerk. So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
These classifications don't equate to any, increase in pay. It's just civil service in the county that has renamed their titles. I'll vote yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 699.
Very similar, it reclassifies the title of a principal clerk. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 700.
Ratifies the appointment of a temporary part-time laborer. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 701.
Ratifies authorization for the supervisor to execute an agreement. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Training for our drivers of our seniors are very important. Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 702.
Ratifies the appointment of a senior citizen aide. So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes, we have a, retiree, so this is a replacement.
Yes.
Okay, Wooten. Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 703.
Ratifies the appointment of a part-time court officer. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 704.
Authorization to publish advertisement for bid for lubricant items. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 705.
Order calling public hearing pursuant to section 202-B of town law regarding budget increase for improvements to facilities of Riverhead Sewer District for proposed fuel facility. Sewer main relocation at 841 Old Country Road. So moved.
just on this one, I think it has to be as amended because the tax map number
Yep.
is incorrect. It should be at the end, it should be, 2-3.3. So it should just be as amended.
Seconded, as amended?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
All costs associated with the project will be borne by the applicant, yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes, let's call for the public hearing.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 706.
Sets forth the sense of the Riverhead Town Board and memorializes opposition to offshore oil and gas drilling and exploration. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 707.
This declares personal property, police department pump-out boat, surplus, obsolete, and authorizes the sale to the village of Greenport. So moved.
Second,
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 708.
Awards bid for Town of Riverhead Police Department Accident Report Retrieval Service. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
This will make it easier on the police department and easier on the public trying to attain the reports, yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 709.
Resolution to change evening town board meeting times. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Okay. I think it was corrected before it
Yes,
went
yes.
out.
Yes,
Yeah.
not in this one, yeah.
Yeah.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
2 meetings, yes.
Wooten.
Okay.
Jen Smith.
Yes, this is for actually the next 3 meetings, so it'll be October 16th, November 20th, and December 18th. We're just, changing the time to 6 PM, to see how that works out. It might see if we increase our audience to come out for our meetings, and if it works, we'll see, maybe we'll schedule for next year, but we'll just give it a try. So yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 710.
Adopts a local law to amend chapter 217 entitled Building, Construction, and the Improvements of Housing Standards of the Riverhead Town Code, Part 6, Blighted Property. I'm very pleased to move forward with this. I think it's a proactive move on the part of the town, and so moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
I'm glad we have the support of the board. We tried to do this a couple years ago and there was not majority support, so I'm glad we have support now, yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Absolutely, yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 711.
Is that me?
Yes.
I'm getting there. Okay, adopts a local law to amend chapter 301 entitled Zoning and Land Development of the Riverhead Town Code, more specifically Code 64, Mortgage and Default Registry. So moved.
Second,
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
and this will really help in communities where, people have abandoned their homes and the grass is grown and the windows are boarded up and the banks own the properties and they're not being, transferred, the titles are not being transferred, and we have a very difficult time trying to find out who the owner of the buildings are to get them to maintain their property. It's really created a lot of quality of life issues for the people that live around these houses that have just been abandoned and taken over by the banks. So this will help with that significantly, and I will vote yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 712.
Adopts a local law to add a new chapter 225 entitled Environmental Quality Review Act of the Riverhead Town Code. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
No.
Wooten.
I think the intent is here, and I know there's some concerns about it, but I don't think this is done in malice. I think this is done just for a better handle of what we have to do as we develop and we come really what I think to the end of our master plan, which is not, we'll build that within a decade, I think it's now very told, so. I vote yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 713.
Approves a chapter 255 application of the Titan Run Corporation, 5K obstacle run entitled The Titan Run, October 13, 2018. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution Resolution adopted. Resolution 714.
Approves chapter 255 application of Riverhead Townscape Incorporated, Riverhead Country Fair, Sunday, October 7th, 2018. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Abstain.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's all right.
I'm on the committee.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 715.
I'm just, if Jim abstains, so can he second the motion, or does
Sure.
somebody else have to second the motion?
Good question.
You can second a motion, just.
You're just moving it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's okay, if not, I can second
Right,
it, just,
yeah.
I wasn't sure.
The abstention only deals with the actual vote itself.
Okay,
Well, I'm gonna move this one, watch this. Approves chapter 255 application of Darkside Production Incorporated, Haunted House Walkthrough, September 28th through November 3rd, 2018. So moved.
And I'm gonna second it.
moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted.
Jim, I didn't want you to have to come back with the country fair again, so.
Yeah, I hear you.
Resolution
Thank you.
716.
Approves the chapter 255 application of Garden of Eve LLC, Long Island Garlic Festival, September 15th and 16th. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 717.
Ratifies the approval of the Chapter 255 application of Jamesport Fire Department, their 5K and 10K race Sunday, August 26, 2018. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 718.
Ratifies and approves the chapter 255 application of Long Island Antique Power Association, 26th Annual Tractor Show and Annual Spring, Summer, and Fall Shows. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 719.
I think we should go back to chapter 90, just makes so much more sense. Approves chapter 255 application of Long Island Beer Company LLC for the Halfway to St. Patrick's Day Party, Saturday, September 15th. That's like pretty quick, 2018. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 720.
Approves the chapter 255 application of Manorville Fire Department, brush truck training event, Sunday, September 30th. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 721.
Approves the Chapter 255 application of the Sierra Club electric car display entitled National Drive Electric Week Event, Sunday, September 16th, 2018. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 722.
Ratifies the approval of the application for fireworks permit of Riverhead Raceway Incorporated, Saturday, September 1st, 2018. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 723.
This authorizes bow hunting for deer on town property at Enterprise Park at Calverton, Suffolk County Tax Map number 600-135-17.33 at all. 1751 Sound Avenue, Calverton, Suffolk County Tax Map 600-60-1-2. 437 Youngs Avenue in Riverhead, Suffolk County Tax Map 600-80-2-6.1. Middle Road, Riverhead, Suffolk County Tax Map number 600-80-2-10.1, from October 1st, 2018 to December 22nd, 2018, inclusive. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes, and the trails at, EPCAL will remain open during the bow hunting.
Just wear orange.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 724.
Grants authorization to CSC Acquisition New York Incorporated, Altice USA, to construct and install fiber optic broadband infrastructure at 2 locations. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Oh, yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 725.
Appoints members to Senior Citizen Advisory Council. So moved.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 726.
Amends guidelines for Senior Citizen Advisory Committee, so moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 727.
Authorizes notice to bidders installation of water mains and appurtenances, Wellbridge Care Center, Riverhead Water District, project number RDWD 1554. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 728.
Pays the bills.
Oh,
So
Lord.
moved.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Kent.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Giglio.
Yes.
Wooten.
Of course, payroll's in there, yes.
Jen Smith.
Yes.
Resolution adopted.
At this time, I ask anybody from the public that would like to come up and comment to the board on anything to please come up. Seeing no one, can I have a first and second to close the town board meeting?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
School's open today, first day, so be careful out there, see the little buses running around there.